leadership has already been widely recognised. She received the Emerging Leader Award at the South Australian Inspiring Women's Awards in 2024, and in 2025 she was awarded the League of Nations Prize at the University of Adelaide. Please join me in welcoming an inspiring advocate for gender equity and a dedicated change maker, Isabella Courtney.
Hello everybody, it is such a pleasure to be here today. It is actually my first time doing an event like this or speaking to this many people in this kind of event, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit, but it's a bit of a full circle moment. I remember when I was in my final year of primary school, I won an award that was sponsored by the Rotary Club, so I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Beautiful. So International Women's Day, a very much cause to celebrate. The UN theme of International Women's Day 2026 is balancing the scales, and so that's about fairness, equity and correcting systemic imbalances between men and women. You can look at it like a scale. If we put a pebble on one side of the scale, it's not going to go too far, but if we put a whole packet of gravel, it'll tip the scales. So I want to echo what UN Women Australia CEO Simone Clark talked about when she was announcing the theme of International Women's Day 2026. And she, in her words, said that balance the scales is a promise for every woman and girl to be safe, heard and free to shape her own future. In 2026, unjust laws, policies and ingrained barriers will stand in the way of fair and inclusive communities. This International Women's Day, we are calling on Australians to join a movement for real action, to transform our justice systems, amplify marginalised voices and ensure equality is not the exception but the rule. I'm honoured to be here and share my journey as a young woman who is navigating the world of leadership, academia and activism, especially in a women's empowerment space. So a little bit about me. I am currently 22 years old. Last year in December, I graduated from a Bachelor of Arts Advanced at the University of Adelaide, which is now Adelaide University, all very confusing. And my majors for that degree were Gender Studies, which is quite fitting, and also Politics and International Relations. I also completed a diploma in languages in Italian on the side. That's a fun fact about me. I'm fluent in Italian. I can speak a little bit of French as well. And then I have just commenced, literally on Monday, a Master of Research with a focus in authoritarian politics. And that'll take me through to the end of this year. And then my most hated question in the world is, what are you going to do when you graduate? Because I have no idea. So I have had quite a bit of a journey as a young activist in the past few years. So my master's degree this year is actually funded by an Adelaide University Merit Scholarship, which is based on my resume in both academia and my professional activities. And then my proudest achievement to date was the SA Inspiring Women's Award Emerging Leader at the 2024 Citizen of the Year Awards. It was a very, very surreal day. I actually wasn't there to receive it because, like half of Australia, I was in Sydney watching Taylor Swift. But my very best friend Olivia accepted it on my behalf at Government House. Priorities, am I right? And I am very privileged to have done a lot of work with different charities and organisations over the past few years. I was very, very young when I started to notice gender inequality. I grew up around a family of incredibly strong women. My mum is 100% the boss in our household, and my dad, it's actually quite backwards in our house in terms of statistics, because my dad would do 90% of the chores and my mum does 100% of everything else. So I grew up in a very empowering household, but that didn't mean that I was immune to noticing gender inequality around me. My mum said to me when I was really, really quite little, I would have been about 4, and I'd been invited to a dress-up party. And she said, well, most of the other girls are going as princesses or they're going as fairies. Do you want a princess outfit? I said, no, Mum, I don't want a princess outfit. She's like, are you sure? It would look so pretty. She got me a ballerina outfit as a backup, but no, I wanted to go as Superman. And when my mum always tells this story, my one adamant demand was that I wanted to wear my undies on the outside, just like Superman. And thankfully, my mum had absolutely no opposition to it. So she said, okay, we'll get you a Superman outfit. And then I had to have some flowers on my face for good measure, obviously. But she was right. Everyone else at the party was dressed as a princess or a fairy or a ballerina. But I was no stranger to challenging gender norms as a kid. And obviously, it was quite tiring. So, my academic work sits at the intersection of politics and gender. So I wrote my undergraduate research thesis on sexual violence as a strategy of warfare in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And then my research is very focused around who holds power and who distributes power, who benefits from power, who is silenced by power. I've always been very, very interested in the dichotomy between men and women and how we can work towards a more just and equal future for everybody. But, as I was saying, when I was a kid, I was no stranger to the gender norms. So, I was a very, very outspoken child. When I wanted to be in charge of the class as a year 2, I would be called bossy or high maintenance. And those were words that echoed around me right up, and they still do, right up into the very high levels of the academic rooms that I'm in currently. I would be called bossy, I would be called high maintenance, I would be called dramatic, difficult. I was a difficult woman. But that same language was never used around the boys in my class. If the boys in my class wanted to lead the class at year 2 age, that was incredible that they wanted to do that. But for some reason, I would always be called bossy. The same thing happened with, I would remember quite often, a teacher would say that they needed a strong boy to help move some furniture around. I would think, well, I'm a strong girl. Why am I not being asked? And so those kind of things really stemmed my passion for female empowerment. These kind of things, they're not small, they accumulate, and it's very much the driving force behind why I do what I do. It's something that's argued a lot in academia, is that gender and gender roles and those norms and the stereotypes that are quite harmful are really reconstructed through that repeated social performance of them. So a lot of what we can do to advance gender equality and empower women is to be conscious of the way that we talk about it. But that led me to founding the PIA project, which is my little passion project. So when I was 1 year out of school in early 2023, I dreamt up this idea because as a kid at school, I had always taken advantage of extracurricular tuition assistance. I had tutors right through school. I was always a really high achieving student, but I knew that having someone there pushing me on the outside would always push me to be that 1% better. And so my dream was to do that for kids who couldn't access it themselves. In a cost of living crisis, tuition and education assistance were one of the first things to go. They're not at all considered, to me, they're an essential service. Unfortunately, to most they are not, and they were scrapped almost immediately. So, PIA stands for Promote Improvement, Equity and Achievement. It's designed for students who would not otherwise have access to education assistance. So we really cater to students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, from low income backgrounds and disadvantaged backgrounds. We do quite a lot of work for kids in foster care and also kids who are in special education systems. What we do. I run a weekly homework club that runs on a Thursday night from 4:30. I do 2 or 3 sessions each Thursday night, each with a different group of kids. And basically these kids come in, they say, Bella, I don't understand addition, or I don't understand multiplication. And I go, okay, well that's great because I understand multiplication and I can help you understand it. And what I do is I help these kids with either something like that, like multiplication, a concept that they don't understand, or they bring an assignment to me and they say, I've written this assignment, but I really don't know how to bring it up to an A grade level or to the level that I want it to be at. And I go, okay, well, let's work together to do that. We have a team of rotating tutors. It is mostly just me, but a team of rotating tutors who do that, especially because I'm really bad at science. So if the kids want help with science, I am not the person to come to. And then I also facilitate online assignment help services for rural students. That comes from a very personal place of mine. My grandparents live on the Yorke Peninsula. My whole family on my mum's side lives on the Yorke Peninsula, and all of my cousins go to either Yorktown Area School or Warooka Primary School. And they would always tell me that they've got teachers that only do one kind of subject but are then brushed into another subject because there's not enough teachers and there's a lot of disparities in the rural education system. So that was kind of a little brain baby of mine to try and combat that problem. And so I've been running PIA for 3 years now. I've had a lot of students come and go. I've had students graduate year 12, get accepted into their university courses. I've had kids who have gone from year 1 being a really, really shy kid to their year 3 and they're the most outspoken kids in their class. And that is one of the things I love most about the PIA project, is that I'm not just trying to teach these kids maths and English and science and humanities. I'm trying to teach them how to be good people as well. And so in its first 3 years of operation, the PIA project has assisted over 30 students from low-income backgrounds. And we have been featured on 7 News. I regularly love updating my Instagram channel for the PIA project. But I was also lucky enough, on the right here, some of you might know Melanie Tate. She is a very prominent figure in the South Australian charity and non-profit organisation community. She runs Puddle Jumpers, which is a children's charity. And I was lucky enough that when I wanted to start the PIA project, I didn't know where to start. I had no idea. All I had was an idea, and I wanted to go somewhere with it. Mel's kids went to my school, so I was lucky enough to have a little bit of an in there, but I reached out to Mel and I asked her how she did it. And obviously it's not a quick answer. We sat down and we talked for many hours about how she had achieved what she has, which is incredible. She is one of my very, very, very biggest role models in the world. And she introduced me to a network that she founded, which was the South Australian Female Founders Organisation. And that organisation has been immensely helpful for me. It's a network of women in South Australia who have founded either non-profit projects or are CEOs of businesses. And one of the things that I think is the most important thing about balancing the scales is making sure that women have spaces to celebrate their achievements. We talk about glass ceilings and shattering glass ceilings all the time, and I think that if we hear glass ceilings shattered, we should be celebrating them. So, one of the things I like to do whenever I'm making a presentation is talk about the good news, because I think it is so exhausting waking up in the current news cycle. Every morning I wake up and I go, oh my goodness, now what's happened? And it's always bad news. We get fed it so constantly on social media, on regular media. It's all just bad news. So I think it is very, very, very important to celebrate what is good. South Australian government, the Malinowskis government, now has more than 50% women. Australia's youngest parliamentarian, she's a friend of mine, Charlotte Walker, senator from South Australia, is a woman. The Albanese cabinet has more women than men in ministerial roles. Women make up over 60% of university graduates worldwide. Girls outperform boys globally in education in every single region. 50 and more countries passed new protections against harassment and discrimination in 2024 and 2025. Global female literacy sits above 91% as of now. Abortion has been decriminalised completely across Australia. Global maternal mortality is down more than 35% in a decade. And women-led startups grow faster than men's globally. But unfortunately, we do have ongoing inequality. For a young woman like me, I'm very conscious of the fact that one of the leading causes of death for women my age is intimate partner violence. It's the leading contributor to death, disability and illness for Australian women aged 18 to 44. 1 in 3 women globally will experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime, and in Australia, 1 woman is killed every 9 days by a current or former partner. And that kind of sits into a very unique nexus of challenge for the younger generation. There's things like artificial intelligence, and AI can be used to exacerbate sexual harassment, exacerbate harassment against women. We see it all the time with artificially generated content. Social media is also a huge proponent of everything that is bad. You see, obviously, bullying happens hugely over social media, and a lot of things are very concentrated on the female demographic. We see very outdated beauty standards and things like that, which are very difficult for young women to navigate. And then that sits in with online radicalisation as well. But where do we go from here? My ethos is that education and engagement matter more than ever. It is so easy to get disengaged from the political cycle when all we are hearing is bad news, but it is more important than ever that young girls stay engaged. That is my mission with things like the PIA project, is to not only help these kids with their maths, their English, their literacy, but it's to help them with their social literacy as well, to understand what is going on around them and understand how they can stand up against inequality and oppression. Encouraging them to move with confidence and purpose through the world is one of the things that I take to heart most when I'm talking to these girls. And also community. This is the Adelaide, or University of Adelaide last year, Adelaide University this year, Female Leaders Group from 2025. They are some of the most inspiring young women I know. They all have beautiful, different, unique journeys and unique messages on what feminism means to them. And I think that surrounding myself with people like that is more important than ever. Bear with me. Lovely. So that is how I want to conclude, is that education and engagement are more important than ever. I think that young girls need to know that they're not alone. They need to know that they've got people looking out for them, and then girls who are in their adolescent and young female eras need to know that they are not alone, that they need to be engaged, they need to know what is going on around them so that they can fight it. And that is my message. Thank you all for having me.